Okay, here's your review. We are going to have 10 true and false questions. I'm not going to tell you what they are. We'll see how well you paid attention or read through your notes. So there will be 10 true or false questions on the exam, but here's what you need to know on top of that, okay? I would know the 5 things that Jackie Kennedy placed in her husband's coffin in the East Room of the White House on November 24th, 1963. She placed 5 different things in his coffin. I would know all 5. I would know the 2 items that Robert Kennedy placed in his brother's coffin that morning. I would know the exact name of the eulogy that was given by Senator Mike Mansfield in honor of President Kennedy.
No, the what? The name?
Exact name of the eulogy. I would know the name of the riderless horse in the Kennedy processional and which military personnel led that horse. Okay, the name of the riderless horse in the Kennedy processional and who led the horse during the entire parade route. Now, I gave you quotes from different people at the gravesite at Arlington National Cemetery during the lecture. Okay? I want you to be able to give me at least one of the men that gave a quote, and I don't want the direct quote, but a semblance of what he said. Okay? So it obviously doesn't have to be the direct quote, but just kind of summate what he said and just kind of write it down. So I gave you 2 men who were quoted about their experiences at Arlington Cemetery. One talked about what? The steepness of walking up to the gravesite. So you can put that person and say, he spoke about, you know, the difficulty of going up the gravesite because it was steep, you know, something like that, okay? I gave you some quotes from the body bearers. And the body bearers are the casket carriers, okay? So be able to name one of the body bearers that was quoted, and again, not the exact quote, but a synopsis of what they were kind of getting at in their quote, okay? So name one of the body bearers that was quoted concerning the movement of the president's coffin from the rotunda onto the horse-drawn caisson, and kind of give me the gist of what he was saying. Then I want you to tell me, in your own words, how Jackie Kennedy summed up the life of her late husband. How did Jackie Kennedy sum up the life of her late husband? And tell me who Theodore White was. I want to know who Theodore White was. And then know 2 or 3 Kennedy-Lincoln coincidences. Okay? There'll be 25 answers. We're going to make it worth 2 points apiece, be like a 50-point test quiz, and that'll end the Kennedy era for this school year. We will meet in the Commons tomorrow, and we will take this. It'll be pretty short. It shouldn't take you much time, and we'll continue on. Okay? The plan for today is after I get done telling you a couple of things, we're going to watch the rest of that video. We'll do the same thing tomorrow. We'll watch video. Now Friday, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to go to Bozeman, Montana to help my son move into a new home he bought. And Ron Overcast is going to be your sub. And I'm just wondering off the top of my head, how many people are not going to be here Friday, just so I know. Okay, could the rest of you be mature enough, which I think you could, if I simply said to Ron, I'm going to give these kids a 50-minute study period to get some of their other work done. How many would you use that? Okay, I've done that before. I trust that you can take care of that. Obviously, I don't want Ron saying, boy, they just sat around and did nothing. So if you need to go to the library, he'll let you go to the library. If you need to go to the tech lab, he'll let you go to the tech lab. So we'll use that period for a study period Friday. Then when we come back Monday, we'll start the Johnson presidency. Okay, and move on. Any questions at all? Okay, before we start, I'm kind of a different guy, but I got some, in my mind, some really bad news yesterday. The lady Concepcion, who has been protesting at the White House since 1981, and I know Sadria saw her, and I don't know if Aaron did or not when you were there. This is her right here. She died yesterday at the age of 80. And I want to tell you a little bit about her because it's really a sad thing we're going to miss. Because I always so much looked forward into the first day we would run to the White House and show you the White House, and I would see her, and she was always happy to see me. You remember, I've been there 17 times, and so she's very familiar. And every year I would give her a t-shirt, and I've even gone back years in which she was wearing one of the t-shirts that I had given her during the time I was there. And probably the thing that touches my heart the most is when I left Montana, and I came back to Worland, I didn't teach for 5 years. I had 2 years as counselor and 3 years as principal. So I hadn't seen Concepcion in 5 years. And so I was a little concerned when we went back with Phoenix Montoya and Brandy Newfer and Danae McGarvin in that class. I was just a little concerned on how she would react because I had seen her consistently for many, many years during our trip. So I got up there, and there she was, and again, what she lived in was basically a big, kind of like a plastic tent, and she's been protesting the government's actions since 1981, and she has to leave 1 hour a day, okay? And so she leaves for an hour and comes back, and she has people that actually help her do this, but she's been doing this since 1981. So I came upon her. I hadn't seen her in 5 years. You know, obviously you don't write to her. And I walked up on her, and she looked at me. She's just a tiny little lady. She looked at me and smiled, and she said, "It's been a long time, hasn't it?" And I just about started crying. I'm not kidding, because I hadn't seen her in 5 years. Well, we went that year and saw her. We went last year. And last year she had published a little book, and she took time to sign the pamphlet for me. And I always talked about how she was doing, and I never thought that the next year she wouldn't be there. But I want to read a little bit about her so you kind of understand her. I don't even know how to pronounce her last name. I always called her Concepcion, so that's what I'll use. Concepcion, the protester who maintained a peace vigil outside the White House for more than 3 decades, a demonstration widely considered to be the longest running act of political protest in U.S. history, died January 25th at a housing facility operated by N Street Village, a nonprofit that supports homeless women in Washington. She was believed to be 80. In the last couple of years, she told me that her health wasn't that good, so she actually lived in an area that supported homeless people, and she would just come back and protest a couple hours a day. Because when I went last year, she wasn't there. And I thought, oh my God, you know what I mean? And the guy told me, no, she'll be back at 4 o'clock. So we came back at 4 o'clock, and she was there. She had recently suffered a fall, but the immediate cause of death was unknown. Concepcion, a Spanish immigrant known to many as Connie or Conchita, was the primary guardian of the anti-nuclear vigil stationed along Pennsylvania Avenue. In a 2013 profile in the Washington Post, Concepcion said she spent more than 30 years of her life outside the White House to, quote, stop the world from being destroyed. Through her presence, she said she hoped to remind others to take whatever action they could, however small, to help end wars and stop violence, particularly against children. Concepcion, always clad in a helmet and headscarf, she had a like a metal helmet on because she was afraid of the radiation in the air, was a curious and at times controversial figure in Washington. Fellow activists lauded her as a heroine. Critics and even casual passerbys regarding her hand-lettered signs dismissed her as foolish, perhaps unwell. Concepcion was quick to share elaborate accounts of persecution by the government, which she considered responsible for many of her physical ailments. Ellen Thomas, a demonstrator who protested along Concepcion for decades, told the Washington Post in 2013 that the truth was somewhere in between. She acknowledged that there were issues that haven't been addressed, for Concepcion's mental health was a concern, but lauded her dedication and stamina. And I can go on and on and on, but I'm just going to tell you a story about her. George Bush I, George H. Bush, decided to reach out to Concepcion many years ago and ask her over for dinner at the White House. The president came over and spoke to her with Secret Service and asked if she'd come over for dinner, and she said no. Told him no. So she was an interesting lady, and I really feel bad that you guys did not get an opportunity to meet her, because she was a character, I'll tell you. And I have pictures all the way back from, I'm trying to think, the first year I went. 1990, I think, and I've got pictures all the way through. So anyway, that'll be a loss for us, but it was really sad, and I had so many former students send me messages yesterday to tell me this, because I didn't know, and then finally I posted on Facebook, and I've gotten quite a few responses from former students. But anyway, she's quite a legend in Washington, and she'll be sorely missed during our trip. I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to see her. I also, go ahead.
I can go home and look tonight, because I think I saw a pamphlet when she gave them.
Oh, you probably do, yeah.
I think I do.
And here's what my kids talk about. In the early years, to make money, she always got rocks and painted them. I probably have a dozen of these, you know, at home, in my display case, etc. And I have several students who emailed me or texted me yesterday and said that they still had their rocks. So she would paint rocks like this, and then she'd like you to give her a donation of $5. I gave her $50 every year I went there. And lots of times she quit doing the rocks because she just didn't have the wherewithal or the means to do it. But she used to do these all the time. And she handed out pamphlets. I don't know when you guys are there, she probably still wasn't doing the rocks, because I don't think she had done it for quite a while. She'd put doves on them, and she was just an incredible character. So I'd be curious to see if you had any of that left. I have all kinds of pictures and different instances with her, and the thing I always remember is the smile on her face whenever she would get a t-shirt from us. That was kind of funny. So I'm sorry you missed her. I also am going to pass around, this is just a thank you note to Bonnie, amen, for giving us that newspaper for the class. If you would just sign that and pass it on, we'll kind of go from there too. Okay, does anybody have any questions over anything? If not, we're going to just continue on with this footage that we were watching yesterday. Now, I think I emphasized it enough, but you guys do realize that this footage is exactly as if you were sitting in your living room on the day watching, okay? So there are some things that aren't actually accurate, but the recording it as it is. Now the plan is to watch this today and continue videos tomorrow. Friday you'll be able to have the class period to do on your own. Tomorrow we'll watch videos after the what? Test. It shouldn't take very long. It shouldn't take you more than like 15 minutes to finish that. We'll meet out there and take that tomorrow, okay? All right. Mary, sorry to bother you, but okay, are we ready? Let's pay close attention. This is pretty good.
Drew, are you ever going to get us the thing with all the Lincoln?
Oh, I forgot. I'll run that.
And the greatest mystery of the American century. The murderer had been murdered. The assassin assassinated. Tears and suspicion were everywhere. In the emotional state of the nation, the word conspiracy arose. Newsmen, police, intelligence agencies examined the evidence. What were the motives of Oswald the killer? Who was the killer's killer? Back then, this is what we knew, and this is how I reported it. A man Dallas police accused of assassinating